What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Kidtage. And today's video is going to be about Rudy Gay, who just signed, a 2-year deal, very cheap deal. This going for $17 million. It's incredible because Rudy Gay is still a pretty quality player. I mean, averaging 19 points, 6 rebounds on 46% shooting his last year. This is a guy that can give you a whole lot on that end of the floor, and he's no scrub. You know, I know that he had that injury at the end of the season, which maybe people are shying away from him because of that. But honestly, if you can get Rudy Gay on board on your team for $8.5 million per year for 2 years, I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. And I think this is an absolutely genius move by the San Antonio Spurs. And you might be thinking, look, they already have Kawhi Leonard there. Well, that doesn't really make a difference, because you know that in today's NBA, positionless basketball is definitely more common thing. We're seeing it more and more where we get small ball, and a guy like Rudy Gay can easily be the four-man. You can play Kawhi Leonard and Rudy Gay at the same time, of course, and we will see that a ton next year. And Rudy Gay is also a guy that could be your sixth man if that's the type of thing that you want him to do. I wouldn't do it, but hey, that works too. Rudy Gay is a very talented player. I think he'll help this team in terms of scoring. And I think that, look, whoever the Spurs pick up seem to fit in their system regardless of who way they were previously. I mean, really, you expect the Spurs to pick up a certain type of player, and Rudy Gay isn't really the type of player you'd expect the Spurs to be picking up, because usually it's, you know, shooters, big men that specialize in one area, foreign players, but mostly just guys that can defend, guys that can shoot are prototypical for the San Antonio Spurs. And obviously, you know, it's more than just that, but also guys that move the ball around, that play together, unselfish, guys that don't have a history of being players that are hard to play with, or problem childs in the locker room, what have you. Rudy Gay, he's been labeled at certain points throughout his career as a guy that puts up maybe empty numbers, doesn't help his team win, shoots a lot of shots without really contributing as much as his points probably say or let on. But look, I don't think that's gonna be a problem. If you play in Coach Popovich's system in San Antonio, everything you're doing is going to be for the sake of production and for the cause of, you know, trying to win the game. And Rudy Gay will definitely be a key cog in the machine that is the San Antonio Spurs next year. Now, this does raise a question, because we know that the San Antonio Spurs were thinking about trading away LaMarcus Aldridge this offseason. We heard a ton of rumors about this. They were trying to get a high pick for LaMarcus Aldridge. As of right now, LA is still in San Antonio, but that's, I guess, maybe subject to change. I don't think it is, just because trades are very hard to come by these days. It's like we always hear about trade rumors for a certain player, but it always takes so much longer for that trade to happen. Usually we hear about players being in the trade rumors a long time before they're actually traded, that or players just get traded without any warning. We've seen both of those things. But LaMarcus Aldridge, as far as I'm concerned, is going to be in a San Antonio Spurs uniform next season. And it's going to be interesting to see the types of lineups that the Spurs roll out with to start next season. You expect they probably pick up a point guard in the offseason. That probably should be their main concern. I know they did get Patty Mills back on board for a few more years, I believe. But Patty Mills should not be your number one option to start at point guard on that team, which is why they're looking at players like Derrick Rose among, you know, other available point guards. And man, it would have been cool to see the Spurs reunite with George Hill. If that was to happen, I think that would have been fantastic, because he's the type of guy that totally would fit in their system. Danny Green, we're likely going to see him return to the starting lineup. Kawhi Leonard obviously is going to be the front and center, just, you know, main player for them, as he always is. And then when you get to the 4 and 5 spots, it's like, well, it's very interesting to see what goes on there, because are we going to be seeing Pau Gasol starting next year? What's the deal with Dwayne Dedmon? They don't really have that starting center, so it would actually be very interesting to see what if the Spurs slide Aldridge to the 5 and put Rudy Gay at the 4 and, you know, see what happens. I mean, I think that would be really interesting. Definitely an experimental idea, not something I would just roll with, because that could have, you know, that really might not work, honestly, because those defensively, I don't know if that lineup will cut it in any way, shape, or form. But it'll definitely be interesting to see what they roll out with. And it definitely raises a question. This Rudy Gay signing doesn't fit perfectly into place at all. It's not the type of signing where it's like, oh, this makes complete sense. This is perfect for the San Antonio Spurs. The best part of this deal is the fact that they got a player as good as Rudy Gay for the money they got him for. In today's NBA, where Steph Curry's, what is he getting paid, $40 million a year? We're seeing Otto Porter get offered $106 million. That's absolutely wild. And you turn around and you see Rudy Gay getting $17 million from the San Antonio Spurs. That's a budget signing. That's a fantastic move. But it does raise questions about, you know, how does he fit in? Obviously, Greg Popovich is going to find a way to insert him into the lineup and into the offense. But the question is, of course, how is he going to do that? And it's going to be very interesting to see how it all turns out, because really, I could see this unfolding a number of ways. But what I do know is that if the Spurs want to win the championship, they might need a few more players than what they have. I don't think they're all good at the center spot or the point guard spot. I think that they need somebody for each of those positions, and then we can talk about them, you know, beating the Warriors. Not to say they're not a contender, because they're definitely my second pick for the West. The second best team in the West and in the league, I would say, maybe. I think they were last year, but I'm just not sure how the team is going to look like this year. If you have Kawhi Leonard and Greg Popovich in that Spurs system, it's just like you can give them a top 3 seed on demand, I think, just by the way Kawhi is playing these days and the role players they have around him, the way they execute that offense and defense is incredible. So yeah, I mean, they should be there anyway. But if they want to be considered a favorite, yeah, they need a point guard and they need a center. So I think that they have work to do. Rudy Gay is definitely a start, because it obviously takes talent and star power to win a championship. Rudy Gay, I wouldn't consider him a star, but he's a very capable player. He's a very good player. And man, the Spurs were close. I mean, look, they were a Kawhi Leonard injury away from contending for the NBA Finals. They really were. I mean, they could have won that series against Golden State. I know a lot of people don't think they would just because of how the rest of it turned out, but man, if the Spurs win that game, if Kawhi stays in the game, doesn't get injured, the Spurs win that game, the Spurs have a legit shot at winning the NBA Finals. Legitimate. I mean, it's really there. So, you know, this team, really, you can't underestimate them no matter who they have in any season, in any sort of instance. But the fact that they acquire Rudy Gay, they get some quality players to add to what they already have, could be scary. I think that it should be looked at as bigger than it's being. Like, I don't think this move is being really processed well enough, because people are saying, well, Rudy Gay, what does he really, what does he do anymore for this? What is he going to do for this team? Most importantly, we know Rudy Gay is capable. What is he going to bring to the Spurs? How is he going to make them better? That's the question. And there's no reason to doubt Coach Popovich and his ability to get players to work in a system. So I don't think that's going to be a problem, but it will be interesting to see what it looks like next season. Either way, the Spurs are going to be big dogs next year. They will win 60 games most likely, I think, again, because that's what they always do. And this team, I don't think it's going to be much worse, if worse at all, than last year. So there's no really reason for them to fall off. And I think this Rudy Gay signing is definitely a good move for the Spurs and Rudy Gay, because he's getting to a point of his career where, you know, he's been on bad teams for most of his career. I think he wants a taste of winning more, and he's willing to be maybe a third, fourth guy, probably third guy, I'd say, on a team where this team will be very successful. And he can really help take some pressure off Kawhi Leonard, most likely, which will be another big thing for the San Antonio Spurs next year. They got to get some help around that man. And even without real star power help around Kawhi Leonard, look at what that team did. I mean, it's absolutely wild. That's going to do it for this video. Rudy Gay signed 2 years, $17 million to the San Antonio Spurs just a few hours ago. And yeah, This is my take, what I think about this trade. I'm out. Thanks for watching, y'all. Peace.